Today, we'll take a look at procedure management. There are two things to always keep in mind with procedures. One, procedures must be stored in a controlled environment. Users access procedures from the controlled environment, and traditionally this was a network file share where the typical user had view rights but not create or edit rights. And two, procedures can only be created or modified using controlled business processes. You're well aware that each procedure has to be created or modified in a systematic manner with proper reviews and approvals. When we translate this into technology requirements, we have a need for 1. Business processes to manage the creation and revision of procedures, and 2. A controlled procedure vault, where the procedures are stored. Note that the terms vault, library, and repository are often used interchangeably. They each refer to the notion that procedures are going to be stored in a controlled environment that is not a network file share. Generally speaking, users can always view procedures. Who the users are and which procedures they can view is also important. But the point of this slide is that view access is very broad. Even though we permit broad-based view access to the procedures, we do not allow users to directly add new procedures to the procedure library. In fact, we don't allow anyone to directly add or modify procedures in the library. When I say directly, I mean that a user cannot simply save a procedure file to the procedure library. Any addition or revision of procedures needs to be done with a controlled business process. And that's what the FACILEX procedure management application does. However, before we look at the process for creating new procedures, let's review the FACILEX Procedure Vault capabilities. FACILEX can have any number of data and document vaults. Here are the common ones. Let's click on Procedures. By default, all the PDFs appear, since viewing the documents is much more common than editing the documents. However, expanding the native blocks shows the native files and their appropriate categories. For procedures, the native files are usually in Microsoft Word format, with supporting data in Excel spreadsheets, although there's no requirement to use those formats. Let's take a look at one category of documents, say quality procedures. Here's the procedure number 4624. The title, procedure number, revision, revision date, and modified date uniquely identify the procedure. The rev date is typically when the revision becomes effective, which is often different from the modified date when the file was uploaded. There's also an obsolete indicator showing the procedure is not obsolete and therefore still active. According to records retention policies, procedures may be kept for years after they are no longer in use. The obsolete indicator is a useful way of indicating that. There are two hierarchies in use in procedure applications. First, there is a 4-level hierarchy that indicates what part of the company or facility the procedure applies to. In this example, we're displaying just the lowest level in the hierarchy, which happens to be hydrocracker. The second hierarchy is the 4-level procedure classification scheme. We see that this procedure is classified as a quality procedure for lab testing. Finally, there's the name of the file that's checked in, which is often different from the title of the procedure. While the right side of the procedure library is the information end, the left side is really the business end. We can see from the PDF icon that the file is a PDF file, which is expected since we selected the PDF vault. Clicking the glasses icon allows us to view a document. The next icon is the Go to Native icon. Since we're in the PDF vault, maybe we want to see the Word file at some point, and we can do that by clicking this icon. The Create New Revision icon is next. We will do this, but a bit later. And finally, each FACILEX object has a dashboard, and this is the link to the procedures dashboard. If we click the glasses icon, we can view the PDF. If we click the Go to Native icon, we can see that there are in fact two native files associated with this procedure, a Word file and an Excel file. And if we click the dashboard icon, we can see all the properties for this procedure. And we can see the where used information for this procedure. Specifically, the procedure was created by a new procedure business process. And the procedure was revised by a procedure revision process. Let's create a new procedure. We can start at the Participants portal and click New Procedure. At the top of the initiation form, we see a 4-state life cycle. We can add a title and a procedure number. Some clients want to be able to explicitly define the procedure number as you see here. Others want the procedure number to be auto-generated by FACILEX, which is also supported. As always, there's a multi-level hierarchy of the physical assets, as well as a multi-level hierarchy to classify the procedures. At the bottom are a number of utility fields which govern the process of how procedures are created. These fields are not properties of the procedure itself. They are simply instructions about creating the procedure. The new procedure dashboard is conceptually the same as other FACILEX business process dashboards. The first task is to download the appropriate procedure template. There may be many templates to choose from, or there could be rules that operate on the choices we made on the initiation form and select the correct templates. The additional information describes what will happen to the templates, files, and folders. Note that the process starts by using a company-approved template. For procedures, it's normally a Microsoft Word file. The procedure file is given a unique name. The title is the same as what we entered on the new procedure form. But both the title and the file name can be modified here if needed. The procedure number also appears. The same fields appear for the PDF version of the procedure. Note that the PDF file is optional, whereas the native Word file is mandatory. When the templates are instantiated, files are created in the Procedure Vault. The PDF files are in the PDF folders, whereas the native files are stored separately in native folders. Now, a procedure may have related documents. An example is the vendor approval procedure, which is a Word document. Often has an associated approved vendor list, which is an Excel spreadsheet. FACILEX has the ability to store up to 5 additional related documents, which can even be increased if needed. Now we need to do the initial edits of the procedure. The additional information tells us which icon to click on, and also provides a reminder to enable track changes in the Word document so that reviewers and approvers can see what you created. Now, admittedly for a new procedure, the initial editing is all new, but subsequent reviewers and approvers can make their suggestions in the document using track changes. Here's the initial version of the document. As always, when Word files are created by FACILEX, the key header attributes are automatically populated. The Word file is saved automatically when we close the file. However, if we also want to save additional files like the PDF file, then we need to do that as well. The red dot indicates that both the Word file and the PDF file have been edited. Furthermore, the local Word file is out of sync with the file saved in the Procedure Vault. This is exactly what you'd expect since we're actively editing this file. Next up, we need to select the appropriate reviewers and approvers. There are myriad ways in which to select reviewers and approvers. A common approach is to have a set of rules for approval. In this example, the EHS director, the engineering manager, and the lab manager are all mandatory approvers. There are no reviewers selected, however. We could select the engineer as a reviewer by clicking the Yes radio button as shown. This is a very simple approval rule set. It's also possible to configure different reviewers and approvers for each different policy and procedure. The approval rules would be set up when the procedure is initially created, and those approval rules would be remembered when the procedure is revised. Since we just identified reviewer and approver roles, we also need to specify which persons fulfill those particular roles. It's now the engineer's turn to review the procedure. Although I'm not going to bring up the document right now, we expect the engineer to open it up and leave his comments in the document. After all the reviews are complete, we expect the owner of the procedure to consolidate the comments from the various reviewers, and, in this case, create a new PDF file as well. Once the reviews are complete, and the owner has updated the procedure, the various approvers weigh in. Finally, the document control person does the final check-in to the procedure vault. We call this pushing the files to the vault, and that's activated by clicking the Push tool. The checkbox to the left of the source file name indicates that this procedure has been revised and is ready to be published to the vault. The revision assignment is automatic and follows the rules we set up when this is configured for your site. Typically, the first revision is Rev 0 and it increments from there. The Rev date, or release date, is often one that is chosen by the quality systems people or document control people. It can be defaulted to today's date, but normally we allow document control to override the date manually. All the same logic applies to the PDF file. Usually the PDF revisions are synchronized with the native file rev levels. When we're satisfied with the revision and the date labeling, we can push the files to the vault. At this point, the new procedure business process is closed. Note that the change indicator goes from a red circle to a green circle, showing that these files have been pushed to the vault. You can use the button bar link to see the files. And here they are. Note that this view is configured for users who can create new procedures, so it has more information than what a typical user would see. Let's move on to revising a procedure. We saw the procedure dashboard previously. Here, for instance, are the attributes of the procedure we just created. On the right is a link to the business process that created this procedure. If you have the rights to create a new revision, you'll see the new revision icon in the button bar. If you don't have rights to do a revision, the icon doesn't appear. Let's click it. This brings up the initiation form for the procedure revision. A revision typically uses the same title as the original procedure. However, this can be configured to allow you to override the title. The procedure number is the same as before and cannot be overridden. The assets hierarchy is the same as before and enforced. The procedure categorization is also the same as before and enforced. Finally, there are a number of fields which govern the revision process, but which are not copied to the procedure vault. The first thing to notice is that the procedure revision creation process has automatically pulled the Word and PDF files from the vault to the local business process folders. Also, we are now working on Rev 1. The current released revision in the vault is Rev 0, as you would expect. That is the Rev that all the regular users see. They will only get to see this Rev 1 after it has gone through the editing, review, and approval processes and is pushed to the vault. The procedure editing process is just as it was before. The selection of reviewers and approvers can proceed as before. But here again, the reviewer and approver selection can be up to the user or can be configured according to a set of rules or a combination of the two. After all the reviews and approvals, we're ready to push the files to the vault. Looks like the Rev level is 1, as we expect, and the Rev date looks reasonable as well. The issue is that the native file name is unchecked, which tells us that the file was never modified. There's also a comment that tells us that the file has not been modified. So is this an error or not? Well, maybe it's an error, Or maybe this is a procedure revalidation situation where we reviewed the procedure, it still looks good, and all we're going to do is give it a new date. In order to do that, just check the box and it will push the file and the new rev level and new rev date. The same applies to the PDF. And now the procedure revision is closed. Let's review some frequently asked questions. First question. Some procedures need to be revalidated periodically, say every year or every 5 years. Is that supported? Answer number 1. Yes. I just showed you how we might do a revalidation, but we also need to know when to revalidate. One approach is to automate the scheduling of procedure revalidation using a FACILEX feature called Schedule Job. Answer 2. We could also ask the user, which is typically the document control person, to assign a revalidation date when the procedure is pushed to the vault. Next question. We have a lot of existing procedures. Can Gateway help by loading them into FACILEX? Answer. Yes. Loading existing procedures is a routine activity performed at the beginning of a project. Gateway will help you export your existing procedure documents and files, and Gateway will help you export the existing procedure metadata. And here's a pro tip. We found that often existing procedure metadata has numerous inconsistencies. In the same procedure collection, you might see revision 1 expressed in a myriad of ways. So there's often an effort needed to clean up these inconsistencies. Question. This presentation showed a lot of functionality. Is this going to be confusing to the users? Answer. No. The experience for the typical user is very simple. They would typically have a bookmark in their web browser called Procedures. That takes them directly to the procedure selection page. There they can select whatever type of procedure they want. FACILEX automatically filters the list of procedures to just the ones the user is interested in this case, quality procedures. The user can look at any procedure they want by clicking the glasses icon. So once you're in the procedures application, it's only 2 clicks to get to the right document. This question often gets asked because I showed you a lot of advanced functionality, like creating new procedures and revising procedures. That requires that I go into the details of how procedures are created, what the logic is for review and approval, and how the procedures are prepared for storing in the procedure vault. These are advanced functions that are generally only performed by specialists. The regular user sees the interface shown on this slide. Next question. When something happens, we usually want to be able to audit everything. Is that possible? Answer 1. Yes, all versions of released procedures are kept in the procedure vault. Answer number 2. And every person's comments are archived in the new procedure and procedure revision folders. Even though the final version has track changes removed, all the intermediate comments are saved and can be recalled. So let's summarize what we've discussed today. Procedure creation and procedure revision are controlled business processes. Procedures must be stored in a vault with controlled access. FACILEX provides new procedure and procedure revision life cycles, a comprehensive facility structure and comprehensive procedure classification structure, complete management of templates and file movement, multi-user editing, reviews and approvals, and complete audit trails. And finally, a normal user would find use of the application to be very, very easy. Thank you very much.